Elena Brooks grabbed the arm of the most dangerous man in the room without knowing it, one desperate lie to escape her ex, one stranger who should have walked away. Roman D'Angelo, a name whispered in fear across Manhattan, turned toward her with eyes that could end lives. But instead of pushing her away, he smiled. What began as a panicked escape from humiliation became something neither of them expected, a collision between two worlds that should never have touched. She was nobody. He was everything people feared. And the moment their hands met, both of their carefully controlled lives began to unravel in ways that would change them forever. If you want to see how far a single desperate choice can take two people who were never supposed to meet, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Grand Meridian Hotel didn't just host weddings, it curated them. Every surface gleamed. Every flower arrangement cost more than Elena's monthly rent. The ballroom ceiling arched 3 stories high, dripping with chandeliers that scattered light across marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts between clusters of guests who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread titled People Who Matter. Elena Brooks stood near the gift table, clutching a small wrapped box, and tried not to look as out of place as she felt. Her dress was nice enough, a simple navy sheath she'd found on sale 2 years ago, but it didn't belong here. Not among the women draped in silk and designer labels, their jewelry catching the light with every careless gesture. She'd come only because Marissa Chen had been her roommate junior year, back when Marissa still ate ramen and complained about student loans. That version of Marissa felt like a different person now. The bride gliding across the ballroom in a custom Vera Wang gown, laughing with people who summered in the Hamptons, bore almost no resemblance to the girl who used to borrow Elena's sociology notes. Elena had planned to stay 15 minutes, drop the gift, say a quick hello if Marissa wasn't too busy, then slip out before anyone noticed she didn't fit. She should have left 10 minutes ago. Elena! The voice behind her hit like cold water down her spine. She turned slowly, already knowing what she'd see. Derek Hale stood 3 feet away, champagne flute in hand, looking exactly as polished and self-satisfied as the last time she'd seen him, 18 months ago. The night he'd told her she wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't interesting enough, wasn't enough to justify the effort of staying. "I thought that was you," Derek said, his smile sharp at the edges. "What are you doing here?" The question carried a weight that had nothing to do with curiosity. It was an accusation dressed up as small talk. "What are you doing in a place like this? Among people like us?" "Marissa invited me," Elena said, keeping her voice steady. "We went to school together." Right. Derek nodded like he'd just remembered something trivial. "Columbia, wasn't it? Liberal arts?" "Comparative literature." "That's what I said." He took a sip of champagne, his eyes traveling over her dress with the kind of assessment that made her skin crawl. "So what are you up to these days? Still working at that coffee shop?" That coffee shop, like it was a phase, a mistake, something she should have outgrown by now. "Yes," Elena said, "still there." "Huh." Derek's smile widened. "That's nice, honest work and all that." Behind him, a blonde woman in a silver gown appeared, sliding her hand onto his arm with the casual possessiveness of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. She was stunning in that effortless way that came from good genes and better skincare. Her smile was bright, curious, and just a little bit pitying. "Who's this?" the woman asked. "Nobody," Derek said smoothly. "Just an old friend." The word friend felt like a slap. Elena's hands curled into fists at her sides. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, that horrible mix of anger and humiliation that made her want to either scream or disappear, preferably both. "I should go," she said abruptly. "Already?" Derek's eyebrows lifted. "You just got here." "I have to work early tomorrow." "On a Sunday?" He laughed, a short bark of disbelief. "Come on, Elena, stay. Have a drink. Enjoy yourself." There was something cruel in the way he said it, like he knew she wouldn't, like he was daring her to admit she didn't belong. Elena turned away without answering, her throat tight, her vision blurring at the edges. She needed to get out, now, before Derek said something else that would crack her open in front of all these people who didn't know her and never would. She moved toward the ballroom exit, but Derek's voice followed her. "It was good seeing you, Elena. Really, you look Exactly the same. She stopped walking. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She could feel people starting to glance over, drawn by the tension in Derek's tone, the sharpness beneath his pleasant words. In another few seconds, this would become a scene, a story. Did you see that girl Derek used to date? She showed up looking like... Elena's eyes swept the room in blind panic, searching for an escape that didn't exist. And then she saw him. A man standing alone by the tall arched windows, half turned away from the crowd. He wasn't looking at the wedding. He wasn't looking at anything, really, just staring out at the city lights beyond the glass with the stillness of someone who'd perfected the art of being present without participating. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. His suit was impeccable, charcoal gray and perfectly tailored, the kind of thing that costs more than most people's cars. But it wasn't the clothes that made him stand out. It was the way he held himself, the absolute certainty in his posture, the sense that he could walk into any room in the world and own it without saying a word. Elena didn't think. She just moved. She crossed the ballroom floor in 10 long strides, her heels clicking against the marble, her heart beating so hard she thought it might crack a rib. The man didn't notice her approach. He was still staring out the window, his profile sharp and unreadable in the golden light. Elena reached out and put her hand on his arm. He went very still. "Please," Elena said quietly, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry. I just need you to pretend you know me for 2 minutes. That's all. Please." The man turned his head slowly, and Elena got her first real look at his face. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe, but there was something ancient in his eyes, something that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. His features were striking in a way that didn't invite comfort. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, eyes so dark they looked black in the low light. And he was looking at her like he was deciding whether she was worth the effort of a response. 2 minutes, Elena repeated, hating the desperation in her own voice. "That's all I'm asking." For a long moment he said nothing, just studied her with that unreadable expression, his gaze moving from her face to her hand still resting on his sleeve, then back again. Then, without a word, he shifted his weight and angled his body toward hers. Not a welcoming gesture exactly, but not a rejection either. "Who are we hiding from?" he asked. His voice was low, smooth, and completely devoid of emotion. "My ex," Elena said. "He's the one walking this way?" Elena's stomach dropped. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Derek cutting through the crowd, the blonde woman still attached to his arm, both of them heading straight toward her. "Yes," she said tightly. "That one." The stranger's expression didn't change. He looked at Derek the way someone might look at a stain on the floor, mildly annoying, easily dealt with. "How do you want to play this?" he asked. Elena blinked. "What? Old friend? Business associate? Date?" The man's tone was clinical, like he was listing menu options. "You're the one who grabbed me. I assume you have a story in mind." I didn't think..." "Then think fast. He's here." Derek stopped 2 feet away, his smile frozen in place. Up close, Elena could see the way his eyes had narrowed, the way his jaw had tightened just slightly. He looked confused, maybe even a little unsettled. "Elena," Derek said slowly, "I didn't realize you were here with someone." "I am," Elena said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "Really?" Derek's gaze shifted to the stranger and something changed in his expression. A flicker of recognition, maybe. Or fear. "I don't think we've met." The stranger didn't answer right away. He just looked at Derek with the kind of silence that made people nervous. Then he extended his hand. "Roman," he said simply. Derek hesitated for half a second before shaking it. "Derek Hale. I'm an old friend of Elena's." "Is that right?" Roman's tone suggested he didn't believe it and didn't care either way. The blonde woman cleared her throat. "I'm Vanessa." Roman ignored her completely. The silence stretched out, thin and uncomfortable. Derek shifted his weight, glancing between Elena and Roman like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't quite make sense. "So how do you two know each other?" Derek asked finally. Roman looked at Elena. For one terrible second, she thought he was going to call her out. Tell Derek the truth. Announce that she'd grabbed a complete stranger and begged him to play along with a lie. Instead, he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It didn't reach his eyes. But it was enough. "We met through mutual friends," Roman said smoothly, "a few months ago." Elena's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear her own thoughts. She nodded, trying to look like that was true, like she hadn't just made the most impulsive decision of her life 30 seconds ago. "That's great," Derek said. He didn't sound like he thought it was great. He sounded like he'd just been handed information that didn't fit the narrative he'd constructed. "Really great." Roman's hand moved to the small of Elena's back, a gesture so natural and possessive that it sent a jolt of electricity up her spine. "We should get back to our table." "You're sitting?" Derek's eyebrows shot up. "I didn't see you at the ceremony." "We came late," Roman said. His tone made it clear the conversation was over. Derek opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but Vanessa tugged on his arm. "Come on, babe. Let's get another drink." He let himself be pulled away, but not before throwing one last look over his shoulder, half confusion, half something that might have been regret. The moment they were out of earshot, Elena exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have—" "You're shaking," Roman said. Elena looked down at her hands. He was right. They were trembling. "I'm fine," she said quickly. Thank you, really. I'll leave you alone now." She started to pull away, but Roman's hand stayed where it was, warm and solid against her back. "Stay," he said. Elena froze. "What?" "If you walk away now, he'll know it was fake." Roman nodded toward the far side of the room, where Derek and Vanessa had stopped to talk to another couple. Derek kept glancing in their direction. "Give it a few more minutes." He was right. Of course he was right. Elena swallowed hard and nodded. "Okay," she said. "A few more minutes." Roman guided her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the worst of the crowd. They stopped near a long table covered in white cloth and scattered rose petals, close enough to the wall that Elena felt like she could breathe again. "You didn't have to do that," she said after a moment. "No," Roman agreed. "I didn't." "Why did you?" He was quiet for a beat, his gaze fixed on something across the room. When he finally looked at her, his expression was unreadable. "You looked like you needed it," he said simply. It wasn't a compliment, it wasn't even particularly kind, but something about the bluntness of it, the lack of pity or judgment, made Elena's chest ache. "I did," she admitted. "Need it, I mean." Roman nodded once, like that settled something. They stood there in silence for a moment, the noise of the wedding swirling around them. Laughter, music, the clink of glasses. Elena snuck a glance at the man beside her, trying to figure him out. He didn't look like the kind of person who went to weddings. He looked like the kind of person who bought buildings and fired people before breakfast. "Do you know Marissa?" Elena asked. "Or her husband?" "No." "Then why are you here?" "Business," Roman said. He didn't elaborate. "That's vague." "It is." Elena almost smiled despite herself. "You're not much of a talker, are you?" "Not usually." "So I'm the exception?" Roman's mouth twitched, just barely. It might have been the start of a smile. Or maybe Elena just imagined it. "Something like that," he said. Another silence fell, but this one didn't feel as heavy. Elena found herself relaxing, just a little, enough to stop clenching her fists. Enough to notice that Roman smelled faintly of cedar and something darker she couldn't place. "I should probably know your last name," she said, "if we're pretending to know each other." D'Angelo. The name hit her like a bucket of ice water. Elena knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name, even if they didn't talk about it. Roman D'Angelo, the man who controlled half the construction contracts in Manhattan. The man whose name appeared in the tabloids next to words like alleged and investigation and organized crime. The man people whispered about in the kind of tone usually reserved for ghost stories. She just grabbed a mafia boss and begged him to pretend to be her boyfriend. "Oh my God," Elena said faintly. Roman raised an eyebrow. "Problem?" No, no problem." "You look like there's a problem." Elena's brain was short-circuiting. "I didn't realize That you'd picked someone dangerous? Roman's voice was flat, almost clinical. Most people don't. That's the point. Elena stared at him. He stared back, completely calm, like they were discussing the weather. Are you going to run? He asked. It was a fair question. Elena probably should run. Should thank him politely, extract herself from this insane situation, and never look back. But Derek was still watching from across the room, and something about the way Roman stood there, utterly unbothered by her panic, by the weight of his own reputation, made her want to stay. Just a little longer. No, Elena said. I'm not going to run. Good. Roman tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't solved yet. Then let's get out of the ballroom before your ex decides to come back. Where? Upstairs, there's a lounge on the 14th floor. He paused. Unless you'd rather stay down here with all these people. Elena looked around the ballroom, at the champagne towers and designer gowns, and people who made her feel like she was made of something cheaper, something less. Then she looked back at Roman, at the strange, dangerous man who'd helped her without asking for anything in return. No, she said quietly. I don't want to stay here. Then come with me. He didn't offer his arm, didn't try to touch her again, just started walking toward the exit like he knew she'd follow. And after a heartbeat of hesitation, Elena did. The 14th floor lounge was nothing like the ballroom, where the wedding reception had been all glitter and noise. This space was dark, intimate, and almost aggressively sophisticated. Low leather couches, dim amber lighting, a long mahogany bar where a single bartender polished glasses with the kind of focus usually reserved for surgery. Roman walked straight to a corner booth, the kind tucked away from the rest of the room, and sat down. Elena slid in across from him, her pulse still racing, her thoughts still tangled. A waiter appeared almost instantly. Mr. D'Angelo, the usual? Yes, and whatever she's having. The waiter looked at Elena expectantly. Red wine, she said. Anything is fine. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Elena folded her hands on the table and tried to look like she hadn't just accidentally stumbled into the orbit of one of the most dangerous men in the city. You come here a lot, she said. It wasn't a question. Sometimes. For business. Yes. Elena waited for him to elaborate. He didn't. You really don't like talking, do you? She said. I talk when there's something worth saying. And right now? Roman leaned back against the leather seat, his eyes never leaving hers. Right now I'm trying to figure out what you're still doing here. What do you mean? You got what you needed. Your ex saw us together. He'll leave you alone now. Roman's voice was matter of fact. You could walk out that door and never see me again, so why haven't you? It was a good question. Elena didn't have a good answer. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe because you're the first person tonight who didn't make me feel like I didn't belong. Something shifted in Roman's expression. Not much, just a flicker of something that might have been surprise. You don't belong here, he said bluntly. In this hotel. With these people. Elena flinched. Thanks. That wasn't an insult. Roman's tone didn't change. I meant you're better than this, better than him. The waiter returned with their drinks, a tumbler of whiskey for Roman, a generous glass of red wine for Elena. She picked it up and took a long sip, buying herself time to think. You don't know me, she said finally. You don't know if I'm better than anything. I know you didn't want to be down there. Roman lifted his glass but didn't drink. I know you grabbed a stranger instead of facing your ex alone, and I know you're still sitting here even though you just figured out who I am. Maybe I'm just stupid. You're not stupid. How do you know? Because stupid people run when they find out my name. You didn't. Elena set her glass down carefully. Should I be running? Roman considered the question for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile this time, small and almost sad. Probably, he said, but he said it like he didn't want her to. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their drinks, the noise from the bar a low hum in the background. Elena found herself studying Roman's face, trying to reconcile the man across from her with the stories she'd heard. He didn't look like a monster. He looked tired, guarded, like someone who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what it felt like to let anyone in. Can I ask you something? Elena said. You can ask. Why did you really help me? Downstairs. Roman's eyes darkened. I told you You looked like you needed it. That's not a reason. It's the only one I have. Elena shook her head slowly. I don't believe you. Then don't. You could have ignored me, walked away, but you didn't. Why? Roman was quiet for so long that Elena thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he set his glass down and leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, his gaze locked on hers. Because you reminded me of something, he said finally. What? What it feels like to be brave when you're terrified. The words hung in the air between them, raw and unguarded. Elena's breath caught in her throat. I wasn't brave, she said softly. I was desperate. Same thing sometimes. Elena didn't know what to say to that, so she didn't say anything, just looked at Roman and tried to understand how someone like him, someone who radiated power and control, could know what desperation felt like. Tell me about your ex, Roman said abruptly. Elena blinked. What? Derek, the one who made you run. Why do you want to know? Because I'm trying to figure out if I need to make sure he never bothers you again. The words were casual, almost offhand, but there was something beneath them, something cold and final, that made Elena's pulse spike. No, she said quickly. You don't need to do that. Are you sure? Yes. Elena took another sip of wine, her hands trembling slightly. He's not worth it. He's just a mistake I made a long time ago. How long? We dated for 2 years, broke up 18 months ago. And he still gets to you. It wasn't a question. Elena looked down at her glass, at the dark red liquid swirling inside. Yeah, she admitted. He still gets to me. Why? Because he made me feel small, Elena said quietly. He had this way of looking at me like I was always going to be less than what he deserved. Like I was something he settled for until something better came along. And the worst part is, I believed him. For a long time, I believed him. Roman's jaw tightened. He's an idiot. Maybe. No, maybe. He is. Elena looked up, surprised by the certainty in his voice. You don't know me, she said again, but softer this time. I know enough. What do you know? Roman held her gaze, unflinching. I know you walked into a room full of people who wanted to make you feel like you didn't matter, and you survived. That's more than most people can do. Something cracked open in Elena's chest. She didn't realize how much she'd needed to hear that, how much she'd needed someone to see her and not find her lacking, until the words were already out there, settling into the space between them like a gift. Thank you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Roman nodded once. Then he picked up his glass and drained the rest of his whiskey in one smooth motion. Tell me something else, he said. Like what? Anything, something real. Elena frowned. Why? Because I want to know who you are when you're not pretending to be someone's fake girlfriend. It should have been an invasive question, should have felt like too much, too fast. But something about the way Roman said it, like he genuinely wanted to know, like he wasn't just making conversation, made Elena want to answer. I work at a cafe, she said slowly. The morning grind over on Amsterdam. It's nothing special, just coffee and pastries and people yelling about oat milk. You like it? Some days. It's steady, pays the rent. That's not what I asked. Elena sighed. No, I don't love it, but it's fine. What would you rather be doing? The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time. Not Derek, who thought her dreams were impractical. Not her parents, who just wanted her to be stable. Not even Marissa, who'd moved on to a life where questions like that didn't matter anymore. I want to be a writer, Elena said finally. I know that sounds stupid. It doesn't. But I've always wanted to tell stories, real ones. The kind that make people feel something. Roman was watching her intently now, his expression unreadable. So why aren't you writing? Because it's hard. Because I don't know if I'm good enough. Because... Elena stopped, shaking her head. Because Derek told me I wasn't, and I guess I never stopped believing him. He was wrong. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? Roman leaned back, his eyes never leaving hers. Because the way you talk about it, the way your whole face changes when you say the word writer, that's not something you fake. That's real. And if it's real, It's worth doing. Elena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back hard, refusing to cry in front of this man she barely knew. "What about you?" she asked, her voice rough. "What do you do when you're not doing business?" Roman's mouth twitched. "I don't." "You don't what? Do anything else. Business is what I do." "That's depressing. It's efficient. It's lonely." The word landed between them like a stone dropped into still water. Roman's expression hardened, but he didn't look away. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Don't you have people, friends, family?" "I have people who work for me." "That's not the same thing." "No," Elena said, "it's not." They sat in silence again, but this time it felt heavier. Sadder. Like they'd both said things they hadn't meant to say, revealed things they usually kept hidden. "I should go," Elena said finally. "It's late." "Where do you live?" "Upper West Side, near the park." Roman pulled out his phone. "I'll have a car take you." "I can get a cab." "Elena." He looked at her, and for the first time all night his voice softened. "Let me do this." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she didn't need his help, didn't need anything from him. But the truth was, she was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, and the idea of getting into a cab alone, replaying every moment of this surreal night, felt unbearable. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." Roman made a quick call, his voice low and clipped. Then he stood, and Elena followed. They walked back to the elevator in silence, rode down to the lobby without speaking. When they stepped outside, a black town car was already waiting at the curb. The driver got out and opened the back door. Elena turned to Roman, suddenly aware that this was it. This was where they said goodbye and went back to their separate lives, lives that had no business intersecting. "Thank you," she said again. "For everything." Roman nodded. "Be careful going home." "I will." She started to get into the car, but Roman's voice stopped her. "Elena." She looked back. "If you ever need someone to pretend again," he said quietly, "you know where to find me." It was meant to be a joke, a light way to end a strange night, but something about the way he said it, like he actually meant it, made Elena's heart twist. "I'll keep that in mind," she said softly. Then she got into the car, and the door closed behind her. As the driver pulled away from the curb, Elena looked back through the rear window. Roman was still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching the car disappear into the Manhattan night. He looked impossibly alone, impossibly still. And Elena couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just walked away from something important, something she didn't fully understand yet, something that was going to change everything. Elena didn't hear from Roman for 3 days, and she told herself that was fine. Expected, even. Men like him didn't chase baristas who grabbed them at weddings. They moved on. They forgot. But on Thursday afternoon, while she was wiping down tables at the morning grind, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Are you free Saturday?" Her heart kicked against her ribs before her brain could catch up. She stared at the screen, the rag in her hand dripping soapy water onto the floor. "You okay?" Maya called from behind the counter. Her coworker was watching her with the kind of sharp curiosity that meant she'd noticed something was off. "Yeah," Elena said quickly, shoving the phone back in her apron pocket. "Fine." But her hands were shaking. She waited until her shift ended to respond. Sat on the subway heading home, the phone hot in her palm, trying to figure out what to say that wouldn't sound desperate or terrified or both. "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Roman." Elena's stomach flipped. She typed and deleted 4 different responses before finally settling on something that felt honest. "How did you get my number?" "You're not as hard to find as you think." That should have been creepy, should have set off every alarm bell she had. Instead, it made her smile. "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." Elena laughed out loud, earning a strange look from the woman sitting across from her. She turned toward the window, still grinning like an idiot. "What happens on Saturday?" "Dinner? If you want." "Where? Does it matter?" She thought about that. Thought about the kind of places Roman probably went. Places with dress codes and prefix menus and waiters who made you feel like you were being judged with every bite. Yes. It matters. A pause. Then, somewhere quiet. No one will stare at you. The thoughtfulness of it caught her off guard. He'd remembered. The way she'd felt in that ballroom, the weight of all those eyes. He'd remembered, and he was trying to make this easier. Okay, Saturday. I'll pick you up at 7. You don't know where I live? Yes, I do. Elena should have pushed back on that, should have demanded to know how he knew, should have insisted on meeting him somewhere public. But she didn't. Because part of her, the reckless, impulsive part that had grabbed his arm 3 nights ago, wanted to see what would happen if she just said yes. Fine. 7. She didn't hear from him again until Saturday evening, when a black town car pulled up outside her apartment building at exactly 7 o'clock. Elena had spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on 6 different outfits before settling on a dark green dress that made her feel almost confident. Not too formal, not too casual. Safe. The driver opened the door for her without a word. She slid into the back seat and found Roman already waiting, dressed in a navy suit with no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You look nervous," he said. "I am nervous." "Why?" "Because I don't know what I'm doing here." Roman's mouth almost smiled. "Neither do I." The restaurant was in Brooklyn, tucked away on a quiet street in Carroll Gardens. Nothing about it screamed expensive, but the way Roman walked in, the way the host immediately led them to a corner table without asking for a reservation, told Elena everything she needed to know. They sat. A waiter appeared with water and menus, then disappeared. "Do you own this place?" Elena asked. "No." "But you know the owner." "Something like that." Elena opened her menu and pretended to read it, even though her brain was too busy cataloging every detail to actually process the words. The way Roman sat across from her, completely relaxed. The way his hands rested on the table, scarred and strong. The way he was watching her like she was the only person in the room. "Order whatever you want," Roman said. "What if I order the most expensive thing on the menu?" "Then I'll know you're testing me." Elena looked up, surprised. "Would that bother you?" "No, I'd just know." The waiter came back. Elena ordered pasta because it felt safe. Roman ordered something in Italian that she didn't catch, and the waiter nodded like he'd been expecting exactly that. When they were alone again, Roman leaned back in his chair and studied her. "Tell me something I don't know," he said. Elena frowned. "Like what?" "Anything. Something true." It was the same thing he'd asked in the hotel lounge, the same quiet demand for honesty. "I've been thinking about you," Elena said before she could stop herself. Roman went very still. "Have you?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Elena chose her words carefully. "Someone colder, meaner, someone who wouldn't have helped me." "Maybe I am all those things." "Are you?" Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Yes, most of the time. But not with me. No, not with you." "Why not?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes like he was trying to figure out how much truth he could afford to give her. "Because you don't expect anything from me," he said finally. "Everyone else does. They want something. Money, protection, favors. But you just wanted 2 minutes of my time, that's all. And when it was over, you were ready to walk away." "I didn't walk away," Elena pointed out. "I'm sitting here." "You almost did." "So did you." Roman's mouth twitched. "Fair enough." Their food arrived, and for a while they ate in comfortable silence. The pasta was perfect, simple, rich, the kind of thing that made Elena want to close her eyes and savor every bite. She caught Roman watching her and felt her cheeks heat. "What?" she said. "Nothing. You just look like you're enjoying that." "I am. It's really good." "Better than the cafe?" Elena laughed. "Way better. Though don't tell my boss I said that. Your secret's safe with me." They kept talking, the conversation flowing easier than it had any right to. Elena told him about her apartment, a cramped studio with a view of a brick wall, and the regular customers at the cafe who drove her crazy. Roman didn't say much about his own life, but he listened like every word mattered, like he was filing it all away somewhere safe. "What about your family?" Elena asked eventually. "Do you see them much?" Roman's expression closed off, just slightly. "No." "Why not?" "Because I made choices they didn't agree with." What kind of choices? He looked at her for a long moment, and Elena wondered if she'd pushed too far. Then he said, "The kind that keep them safe by keeping them away from me." The words landed heavy between them. Elena set down her fork. "That must be lonely," she said quietly. "It is what it is." "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." Elena reached across the table and touched his hand, just for a second, just long enough to let him know she'd heard what he wasn't saying. Roman's fingers twitched, like he wanted to hold on but didn't know how. "Tell me about your writing," he said, changing the subject. Elena pulled her hand back, suddenly self-conscious. "There's not much to tell." "You said you wanted to be a writer. What do you write?" "I don't." "Not really. I have a notebook full of half-finished stories and ideas that go nowhere." "Why?" "Because I'm scared they're terrible. Because I don't know if I have anything worth saying." "That's an excuse." Elena bristled. "Excuse me?" "You're using fear as a reason not to start. But fear doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you care." "That's easy for you to say." "Is it?" Roman leaned forward, his voice dropping. "You think I don't know what it's like to be afraid of failing? I built everything I have from nothing. Every decision I make could cost me everything, but I make them anyway because the alternative is standing still." Elena stared at him. "That's different." "How?" "Because you're—" She gestured vaguely at him. "You're you. You're powerful. People listen to you." "People fear me. That's not the same thing." "It's still more than I have." Roman shook his head slowly. "You have more than you think. You just don't see it yet." Elena didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain that believing in herself felt impossible when every voice in her head, Derek's voice mostly, kept telling her she wasn't enough. "Can I ask you something?" she said instead. "Always." "Why do you care? About my writing? About any of this?" Roman was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Because I spend every day with people who only see what I can do for them, what I can give them. And you look at me like I'm just a person. That's rare. Maybe I want to give you something back." Elena's throat tightened. "I don't need you to give me anything." "I know. That's why I want to." The rest of dinner passed in a blur. They talked about everything and nothing: books, movies, the city, the way life never turns out the way you plan. By the time dessert arrived, Elena felt like she'd known Roman for years instead of days. When the check came, Roman didn't even look at it. Just handed the waiter a card and told him to add 30%. Outside, the night air was cool, the street quiet except for the distant hum of traffic. The car was waiting, but Roman didn't move toward it. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a question. Elena fell into step beside him, her heels clicking against the pavement. They walked in silence for a block, then two. Past brownstones with glowing windows, past couples holding hands, past a bodega where an old man sat outside smoking a cigarette and watching the world go by. "I haven't done this in a long time," Roman said suddenly. "Done what?" "This. Walked. Talked. Just existed without an agenda." Elena glanced at him. "Do you always have an agenda?" "Usually." "What's your agenda tonight?" Roman stopped walking, turned to face her. For a moment he just looked at her, his expression caught somewhere between guarded and open. "I don't have one," he said. "That's the problem." Elena's heart was beating too fast. "Why is that a problem?" "Because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be around you without trying to fix things or control things or—" He stopped, jaw tight. "I don't know how to just be." The honesty of it broke something open in Elena's chest. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him. "You don't have to know," she said quietly. "We can figure it out together." Roman looked at her like she'd just offered him something impossible, something he didn't deserve. "I'm not a good man, Elena." "I didn't ask you to be." "You should. You should want someone better." "Maybe I don't want better. Maybe I just want you." The words hung in the air between them, raw and reckless. Roman's hand came up, fingers brushing her jaw so gently it made her ache. "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do." "Elena?" She kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't smooth. She just rose up on her toes and pressed her mouth to his, and for a second Roman went completely still. Then his hand slid into her hair, and he kissed her back, slow and careful, like he was afraid she might break. When they finally pulled apart, Elena was breathless. Roman's forehead rested against hers, his breathing uneven. "We should stop," he said. "Why?" "Because I don't want to ruin this." "What if it's already ruined? Then I don't want to make it worse." But he didn't let go, didn't step back, just stood there holding her like she was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. Elena's phone buzzed in her purse. She ignored it. It buzzed again. "You should check that," Roman said. She didn't want to break whatever fragile thing was forming between them. But the buzzing didn't stop, and finally she pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Maya. 2 texts. "Call me. Elena, seriously, call me now." Her stomach dropped. She dialed without thinking. Maya picked up on the first ring. "Oh, thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. What's wrong?" "Derek showed up at the cafe today." Elena's blood went cold. "What?" "He came in asking for you, wanted to know when you'd be back. He seemed weird, Elena, really weird. I told him I didn't know anything, but he kept pushing." Roman was watching her now, his expression sharpening. "What did he want?" Elena asked, her voice tight. "I don't know. He said he needed to talk to you, that it was important. But the way he said it," Maya's voice dropped. "It didn't feel right. I'm worried." "Did he leave?" "Yeah, eventually. But Elena, I think you should be careful." "I will. Thank you for calling." She hung up and looked at Roman. His jaw was set, his eyes dark. "What happened?" he asked. Elena told him. Watched his expression go from concern to something harder, colder, something dangerous. "He came to your work," Roman said slowly. "To find you." "He probably just wants to talk." "No." Roman's voice was flat. "Men like that don't just want to talk, they want control." "You don't know him." "I know enough." Elena shook her head. "It's fine. I'll handle it." "How?" "I don't know. I'll figure it out." Roman stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. "Let me help." "No." "Elena?" "No, Roman. I can't. I can't let you solve my problems for me. That's not what I want." "What do you want?" "I want you to trust me to handle this myself." Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, even though everything in his posture screamed that he wanted to do the opposite. "Okay," he said. "But if he shows up again, I'll tell you. Promise me." Elena hesitated. Then she said, "I promise." They walked back to the car in silence. Roman opened the door for her, and she slid inside. He followed, sitting close enough that their legs almost touched. "Where do you want to go?" he asked. "Home." He gave the driver her address, and the car pulled away from the curb. They didn't talk during the ride, just sat there in the darkness, Elena's hand eventually finding Roman's and holding on tight. When they pulled up outside her building, Roman walked her to the door. "Thank you," Elena said. "For tonight. I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay." He hesitated, like he wanted to say something else. Then he just nodded and stepped back. Elena went inside, took the elevator up to her floor, and let herself into her apartment. It was only when she was alone, the door locked behind her, that she let herself exhale. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Roman. "Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone." She smiled despite herself. "Already done." "Good. Sleep well, Elena." She fell asleep that night thinking about his hands in her hair, the way he'd kissed her like she mattered. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she did. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze of stolen moments. Roman would text her in the morning before she went to work, call her at night when her shift ended. They met for coffee, for walks, for long dinners where they talked until the restaurant closed, and the waiters started giving them pointed looks. Elena learned things about him in fragments. That he drank his coffee black, that he'd grown up in Queens, not Manhattan, that he hated summer but loved the rain, that he read more than she expected, mostly histories and biographies of men who'd built empires and lost them. "Why those books?" she asked one night. They were sitting in a bookstore in the East Village, tucked into a corner where no one could see them. Roman looked up from the book in his hands, something about Alexander the Great, because I want to know how they failed. Why? So I don't make the same mistakes. Elena pulled her knees up to her chest. Do you think you will? Fail, I mean. Everyone does eventually. That's depressing. It's realistic. Maybe you should read something happier. Roman set the book down and looked at her. Like what? Elena scanned the shelves around them, then grabbed a paperback at random. This! It's a romance! Roman took it, flipped through a few pages, and raised an eyebrow. People don't actually talk like this. It's fiction. They're not supposed to. Then what's the point? The point is it makes you feel something. That's what stories do. They let you feel things you're too scared to feel in real life. Roman was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing the edge of the book's cover. What are you too scared to feel? He asked. Elena's breath caught. I don't know, everything, nothing. It depends on the day. What about today? She looked at him, at the way the bookstore's dim lighting caught the sharp lines of his face. Today, I'm scared I'm getting too attached to you. Roman set the book aside. And that's bad? I don't know yet. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. I'm scared too, he said quietly. Of what? That I'm going to ruin this, that I'm going to hurt you without meaning to. What if you don't? What if I do? Elena leaned into his touch. Then we'll deal with it. Together. Roman kissed her then, slow and deep, and Elena felt the world narrow down to just the two of them. The bookstore, the rain starting to fall outside, the way his hand cradled the back of her neck like she was something precious. When they finally broke apart, Roman's phone was buzzing. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. I have to go, he said. Now? Yes, I'm sorry. Elena tried not to let the disappointment show. It's okay. Work, right? Roman's jaw tightened. Something like that. He stood, and Elena followed. Outside, the rain was coming down harder now, turning the streets slick and dark. Roman's car was already waiting. I'll call you later, he said. Be safe. He looked at her like he wanted to say something else. Then he just nodded and got in the car. Elena watched it disappear into the rain, and for the first time since this started, she felt the weight of what she'd gotten herself into. Roman wasn't just a man with a demanding job. He was someone whose work came with consequences, with danger, with a world she couldn't see and didn't understand. She went home, made tea, and tried to write, but the words wouldn't come. All she could think about was Roman, wherever he was, doing whatever he did when he wasn't with her. Her phone rang at 2 a.m. She grabbed it, heart pounding. Roman? I'm okay. His voice was rough, tired. I just wanted you to know. Where are you? Somewhere I can't talk about. Elena's chest tightened. Are you hurt? No, just tired. Come over. There was a long pause. Elena, please, just come over. She heard him exhale. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He was there in 15. Elena opened the door and Roman walked in, his suit rumpled, a shadow of stubble on his jaw. He looked exhausted, worn down in a way she hadn't seen before. Sit, she said, guiding him to the couch. He did. She sat beside him, and without a word, Roman leaned into her, his head resting on her shoulder. They stayed like that for a long time. Elena running her fingers through his hair, Roman breathing slowly, letting the tension drain out of him. Thank you, he said finally. For what? For letting me be here. Elena kissed the top of his head. Where else would you be? Roman didn't answer, just closed his eyes and held on tight. And in the quiet darkness of her cramped studio apartment, Elena realized something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She was falling in love with him. She didn't tell him right away. How could she? Love felt too big, too dangerous to say out loud to a man who lived in a world where vulnerability could get you killed. So Elena kept it locked inside and tried to pretend everything was fine. But Roman noticed. He always noticed. You're quiet tonight, he said. They were in his apartment, a penthouse in Tribeca with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Hudson. Elena had been there twice before, but it still felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. "Just tired," she said. Roman set down his glass and moved closer. "That's not it." "How do you know?" "Because when you're tired, you get chatty. When you're worried, you go quiet." Elena looked up at him. "I'm not worried." Liar. She tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Roman sat beside her on the couch, his hand finding hers. "Talk to me," he said. "About what?" "Whatever's in your head right now." Elena wanted to tell him that she was terrified of how much she needed him, how fast this was moving, how she didn't know how to protect herself if it all fell apart. But the words stuck in her throat. "It's nothing," she said finally. Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm going out of town tomorrow." Elena's stomach dropped. "For how long? 3 days? Maybe 4. "Where?" "Chicago. Business I can't avoid." She nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral. "Okay." "Elena, it's fine. You don't have to explain." "Yes, I do." Roman turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "I need you to understand something. The work I do, it's not clean, it's not simple, and sometimes it takes me places I can't talk about, to do things I can't explain." "I know that." "Do you? Because you say you do, but I don't think you really get what that means." Elena pulled her hand away. "Then explain it to me." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because the less you know, the safer you are." "That's not fair." "No, it's not. But it's the truth." Elena stood up, pacing toward the windows. The city stretched out below them, a million lights in the darkness. She pressed her palm against the glass, feeling the cold seep through. "I can't do this if you're always going to shut me out," she said quietly. Roman came up behind her. She could feel the heat of him, the solid presence that made her feel both safe and trapped. "I'm not trying to shut you out," he said. "I'm trying to protect you." "From what?" "From me. From my life. From everything that comes with being close to someone like me." Elena turned to face him. "What if I don't want to be protected?" "Then you're not thinking clearly. Or maybe you're not giving me enough credit." Roman's jaw tightened. "Elena, I'm not fragile, Roman. I'm not going to break just because your life is complicated." "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." Her voice rose, frustration finally breaking through. "Stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Stop making decisions for me about what I can handle. If you want me in your life, then let me actually be in it. Not just the easy parts. All of it." Roman stared at her, something raw and conflicted in his eyes. "You don't know what you're asking." "Yes, I do." "No, you really don't. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Elena watched the tension coil through his shoulders, the way his hands curled into fists at his sides. "I've hurt people," he said finally. His voice was low, almost hollow. "I've done things that would make you leave if you knew the details. I've built everything I have on choices that decent people don't make. And the worst part is, I'd do it all again. Because that's who I am. That's what I am." Elena's heart was pounding. "Are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to be honest with you." "Then be honest. Tell me the truth. Do you want me here or not?" Roman turned back to her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. Lost. "Yes," he said. "More than I've wanted anything in a long time." "Then stop pushing me away." "I'm not." "You are. Every time you shut down. Every time you leave in the middle of the night and won't tell me where you're going. Every time you look at me like I'm something you're going to break." Elena stepped closer, her voice softening. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to let me in." Roman closed his eyes. "I don't know if I know how." "Then we'll figure it out. Together. Isn't that what you said?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he was afraid she might disappear. "I'm sorry," he said against her hair. "For what?" "For being terrible at this." Elena laughed despite herself. "You're not terrible. I'm not good either. Good enough." They stood there holding each other, the city lights flickering beyond the windows. Eventually, Roman pulled back just enough to look at her. "Come with me," he said. Elena blinked. "What?" "To Chicago. Come with me." "Roman, I have work. Take a few days off, please. I can't just eat. I'll pay you whatever you'd lose from missing shifts. That's not the point. Then what is the point?" His hands came up to frame her face. "I don't want to leave you here. I don't want to be away from you for 4 days wondering if you're okay, if Derek's bothering you again, if you're sitting in your apartment overthinking everything like you're doing right now." Elena's breath caught. "You can't just solve everything with money." "I'm not trying to solve anything. I'm asking you to come with me because I want you there. Not because I think you need me to take care of you, because I need you with me." The honesty in his voice cracked something open in her chest. She wanted to say yes, wanted it so badly it scared her, but something held her back. "What would I even do there?" she asked. "Whatever you want. We'll be in meetings during the day, but the nights are ours. We can go to dinner, walk around the city. You can write if you want. He stopped, struggling with words that clearly didn't come easily. "I just want to know you're close." Elena looked up at him, at the vulnerability he was trying so hard to hide, and felt her resistance crumble. "Okay," she said softly. Roman's expression shifted, relief flooding through. Yeah, I'll come." He kissed her then, hard and grateful, and Elena felt the last of her doubts dissolve, at least for now. They left the next morning on a private plane that made Elena feel like she'd stumbled into someone else's life again. The seats were leather. The flight attendant brought them coffee in actual mugs, not paper cups. Roman worked on his laptop most of the flight, his brow furrowed in concentration, while Elena tried to read and mostly just watched him. "You're staring," he said without looking up. "I'm observing." "That's the same thing." "No, it's not. Observing is scientific." Roman's mouth twitched. "Is that what you're doing? Conducting research?" "Maybe." "What have you learned so far?" Elena pretended to consider it. "That you frown when you work, that you drink too much coffee, that you're left-handed but you use your phone with your right hand." Roman finally looked up. "Anything else?" "That you're nervous about whatever we're flying into." His expression closed off slightly. "I'm not nervous." "You are. You do this thing with your jaw when you're tense. You've been doing it since we got on the plane." Roman set the laptop aside and leaned back. "You're too observant." "Is that a bad thing?" "It could be." "Why?" "Because the more you see, the harder it is for me to hide things from you." Elena's pulse quickened. "Are you hiding things from me?" "Always." The bluntness of it stung. Elena looked away, out the small window at the clouds below. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Roman said quietly. "But you wanted honesty. That's honest. There are parts of my life I can't share with you, not because I don't trust you, because I'm trying to keep you separate from it. What if I don't want to be separate? What if that's not your choice to make?" Elena turned back to him, anger flaring. "Everything about this is my choice. You don't get to decide what I can handle." "Someone has to." "Why? Because you think you know better? Because I've seen what happens when people get too close to my world. I've seen them get hurt, get killed, get destroyed by things they never should have been part of." Roman's voice was hard now, edged with something that sounded like old pain. "I'm not letting that happen to you. So what? I'm just supposed to exist in this bubble? Only see the parts of you that are safe?" "Yes." "That's not a relationship, Roman. That's you keeping a pet." His eyes flashed. "Don't say that. It's true." "No, it's not. I'm trying to protect you, Washi. I don't need your protection. I need you to trust me." "I do trust you." "Then prove it. Stop shutting me out." They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to choke on. Finally, Roman looked away, his jaw working. "This meeting in Chicago," he said slowly, "it's not just business. There are people I'm negotiating with who don't negotiate nicely. If things go wrong, they won't. You don't know that. Neither do you." Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If something happens, I need you to promise me you'll leave. Get on a plane and go home. Don't wait for me. Don't try to help. Just go." Elena's blood ran cold. "Roman, promise me." What are you expecting to happen? Nothing. But if it does, I'm not leaving you. Elena, no, I'm not promising that. If you're in trouble, I'm not just going to abandon you. Roman's hand found hers, gripping tight. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're too stubborn for your own good. And you're too controlling for yours. Despite everything, Roman almost smiled. We're a disaster, aren't we? Probably. You should walk away. Find someone normal. I don't want normal. You should. Too bad. Roman pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. You're going to drive me crazy. Good. Someone should. They landed in Chicago in the early afternoon. A car was waiting to take them to a hotel downtown. Another absurdly nice place that made Elena feel out of her depth. Their room had a view of the lake and a bathroom bigger than her entire apartment. Roman had meetings that evening. He left at 6, promising to be back by 10. Elena ordered room service, tried to write, and ended up pacing the room like a caged animal. Every sound in the hallway made her jump. Every passing minute felt like an hour. At 11, she texted him. Are you okay? No response. At midnight, she called. It went straight to voicemail. Elena told herself not to panic. He'd said the meetings might run late, but her imagination was running wild, conjuring every worst-case scenario. Roman bleeding in an alley, Roman arrested, Roman hurt and unable to call for help. At 1 in the morning, the door finally opened. Roman walked in looking exhausted but whole. Elena launched off the couch and threw her arms around him. You scared me, she said against his chest. I'm sorry, the meeting ran long and my phone died. You could have used someone else's phone. I should have, I'm sorry. Elena pulled back just enough to look at him. There was a tension in his face she didn't like, a tightness around his eyes. Did something happen? She asked. Nothing I couldn't handle. That's not an answer, Roman sighed. The negotiations didn't go the way I planned. We'll have to meet again tomorrow. Is that bad? It's complicated. Roman, please, I'm tired. Can we not do this right now? Elena bit back the questions clawing at her throat and nodded. Okay, but tomorrow, we talk. Tomorrow, Roman agreed. He disappeared into the bathroom. Elena heard the shower running for a long time. When he finally came out, his hair was wet, his expression slightly more relaxed. He climbed into bed beside her, and Elena curled into him without thinking. Thank you for coming with me, he said quietly. Where else would I be? Roman's arm tightened around her. I don't deserve you. Probably not. He laughed, a low rumble in his chest. Brutal. Honest. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and for a few hours everything felt okay. Safe. Right. The next day, Roman left early. Elena woke to a note on the pillow beside her. Back by 3. Stay in the hotel, please. She wanted to be annoyed by the command, but the please softened it just enough. Elena spent the morning exploring the hotel, drinking overpriced coffee in the lobby, people watching. Around noon, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Her heart stopped. She knew that tone. That entitlement. Derek? Where are you? That's none of your business. I know you're in Chicago, with him. Elena's blood ran cold. How did he know that? Had he been following her, tracking her somehow? Leave me alone. I'm trying to help you, Elena. You don't know who you're involved with. I know exactly who I'm with. No, you don't. Roman D'Angelo is dangerous. He's going to hurt you. You don't know him. I know his reputation. Everyone does. He's a criminal. He ruins people. Elena's hands were shaking. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. You're one to talk about ruining people. I'm serious. You need to get away from him before it's too late. Stop texting me. Elena. She blocked the number and sat there staring at her phone, her heart racing. Derek was in her head now, his words poisoning everything. Roman is dangerous. He's going to hurt you. She knew that. She'd always known that. But hearing it from Derek made it feel different, made it feel real in a way she'd been avoiding. When Roman got back at 3, Elena was sitting on the edge of the bed, still holding her phone. What's wrong? He asked immediately. Elena looked up. Derek knows I'm here. Roman went very still. How? I don't know. He texted me, said, I don't know who you are, that you're dangerous. What did you tell him? To leave me alone. Roman crossed the room and took the phone from her hands. He scrolled through the messages, his expression darkening with every line. He's been tracking you, Roman said flatly. How? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. He made a call, speaking in rapid Italian to someone on the other end. Elena caught words like surveillance and location but couldn't follow the rest. When he hung up, his jaw was tight. I'm having someone look into it. In the meantime, you're not going anywhere alone. Roman, I mean it, Elena. If he's tracking you, if he knows where you are, then he's more than just a jealous ex. He's a threat. You're overreacting. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, a man you rejected is stalking you across state lines. That's not normal behavior. Elena wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because Roman was right. This wasn't normal. This was obsessive, dangerous. What do I do? She asked quietly. Roman pulled her close. You let me handle it. I thought you didn't want to solve my problems for me. This isn't your problem anymore. He made it mine when he started coming after you. That's not how this works. Yes, it is. Roman's voice was hard, final. I don't care if you think I'm overstepping. I don't care if you want to handle it yourself. Someone is threatening you, and I'm not going to stand by and let it happen. Elena pulled back to look at him. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. Roman, don't ask me questions you don't want the answers to. The words hung between them, heavy and ominous. Elena's stomach twisted. She thought about Derek, about what Roman was capable of, about how far he might go to protect her. Promise me you won't hurt him, she said. Roman's expression didn't change. I can't promise that. Roman, I can promise I won't kill him, but I can't promise I won't make him regret every choice that led him to this moment. Elena's mouth went dry. That's not okay. Neither is him stalking you. Two wrongs don't lecture me about morality, Elena. Not about this. Then what am I supposed to do? Just accept that you're going to hurt someone because of me? Yes, because that someone hurt you first. That was different. How? He broke you down, made you feel worthless. And now he's tracking you, threatening you, trying to isolate you from someone who actually cares about you. How is that different? Elena didn't have an answer, because it wasn't different. Not really. Derek had been hurting her for years, in ways she'd tried to pretend didn't matter. And now he was doing it again. I don't want you to become someone you're not because of me, she said finally. Roman's expression softened, just slightly. I'm already that person. I've always been that person. You just didn't want to see it. The truth of it hit her like a slap. He was right. She'd been so focused on the gentle moments, the quiet conversations, the way he made her feel safe, that she'd convinced herself the dangerous parts didn't exist. But they did. They always had. I need some air, Elena said. I'll come with you. No, I need to be alone, just for a little while. Roman looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded. Stay in the hotel, please. Elena grabbed her key card and left before she could change her mind. She took the elevator down to the lobby, walked through the revolving doors, and stepped out onto the street. The afternoon air was cool, the city alive with people and noise. Elena started walking, no destination in mind, just needing to move, to think, to figure out what the hell she was doing. She'd fallen in love with a man who lived in violence, who solved problems with threats and power, who would hurt someone without hesitation if he thought it would keep her safe. And the worst part was, she wasn't sure she wanted him to stop. Because Derek had made her feel small for years, had torn her down piece by piece until she didn't recognize herself anymore. And Roman made her feel whole again, made her feel like she mattered, like she was worth protecting. But at what cost? Elena walked for blocks, the question circling in her head. She passed coffee shops and boutiques, families with strollers, couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives. She wanted that, didn't she? But when she thought about walking away from Roman, about going back to her tiny apartment and her cafe shifts and her half-finished stories, it felt like drowning. She was still thinking about it when she noticed the man following her. He was about half a block back, wearing a dark jacket and sunglasses. Nothing overtly suspicious, but something about the way he moved set off alarms in her head. She turned a corner. He turned the same corner. Elena's pulse spiked. She walked faster. So did he. She pulled out her phone and called Roman. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" "I don't know. A few blocks from the hotel. Someone's following me." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Describe him." Elena glanced back. The man was closer now. Dark jacket, sunglasses, brown hair, maybe 6 feet. "Turn around, walk back toward the hotel. Now!" Elena spun and started walking fast, her heart hammering. The man was still behind her, matching her pace. "He's still following me." "I'm coming to get you. Stay on the phone." "Roman, just keep walking. Stay where there are people." Elena cut through a crowded plaza, weaving between tourists and street vendors. The man stayed on her tail. She could feel his eyes on her back, could sense the intent. Then she saw Roman. He was moving toward her through the crowd, his face set in stone, his eyes locked on the man behind her. Elena's breath caught. Roman didn't slow down, didn't stop, just walked straight past Elena and grabbed the man by the arm, yanking him into a narrow alley between two buildings. Elena froze. She heard raised voices, a shout, then silence. Roman emerged a minute later, his expression dark. He took Elena's hand and pulled her away from the alley, away from the crowd, back toward the hotel. "What did you do?" Elena asked. "What I needed to. Roman, he was one of Derek's people, hired to follow you." "How do you know?" "Because I asked him, and he told me." Elena's stomach turned. "Did you hurt him?" Roman didn't answer. They made it back to the hotel. Roman didn't let go of her hand until they were in the elevator, alone. "I'm handling this," he said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it, something cold. "What does that mean?" "It means Derek's about to learn what happens when you come after someone I care about." Elena looked at him, at the hard lines of his face, the ruthlessness in his eyes. This was the man everyone feared, the one the stories were about, and she was terrified to realize she didn't want to stop him. They didn't speak on the elevator ride up. Elena's mind was spinning too fast, trying to process what had just happened. Roman's hand was still wrapped around hers, warm and solid, but she couldn't stop seeing the look on his face when he dragged that man into the alley, the coldness in it, the certainty. When they got back to the room, Roman locked the door behind them and immediately made another call. He spoke in low, clipped tones, pacing by the windows while Elena sat on the edge of the bed and tried to steady her breathing. "I want every detail," Roman was saying. "Who hired him? How long he's been following her? What he reported back? And I want Derek's current location. Now." He hung up and turned to Elena. The hardness in his expression softened slightly when he saw her face. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For scaring you." Elena shook her head. "You didn't scare me." "Yes, I did. I saw it in your eyes, and—" She looked down at her hands. "Maybe a little, but not because I thought you'd hurt me, because I saw what you're capable of doing to someone else." Roman crossed the room and knelt in front of her, his hands covering hers. "I would never—" "I know, that's not what I meant." Elena met his gaze. "I saw who you really are. Not the version you show me. The other one. And you hate it." "No, that's the problem. I don't." Roman went very still. "What?" "I should be horrified. I should want to leave. But all I can think is that Derek has been making my life hell for months, and you stopped it in 5 minutes. She laughed, a bitter sound. "What does that say about me?" "It says you're human, that you're tired of being afraid. It says I'm okay with violence if it benefits me. That's not who I want to be." "Then who do you want to be?" Elena didn't have an answer. She'd spent so long trying to be good, trying to do the right thing, trying to be the kind of person Derek said she should be, but maybe that version of herself was just another cage. "I don't know anymore," she admitted. Roman's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "You want to know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. I think you've been letting people tell you who you should be for so long that you forgot who you actually are." "And who's that?" "Someone brave, someone stubborn, someone who grabbed a stranger at a wedding because she refused to let her ex make her feel small." Roman's voice was quiet, intense. "That's who you are." Not perfect, not always right, but real. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I don't feel real, I feel lost. Then let me help you find your way back. How? By reminding you what you wanted before anyone told you it was impossible. What did you want, Elena? Before Derek, before all of this, what did you actually want? The question cracked something open in her chest. She thought about the notebooks full of half-finished stories, the dreams she'd tucked away because they felt too big, too unrealistic, the version of herself she'd abandoned somewhere along the way. I wanted to write, she said quietly. I wanted to tell stories that mattered. I wanted to create something that would last longer than I do. So why aren't you? Because I'm scared. Of what? That I'm not good enough. That Derek was right. That I'll spend years working on something and it'll be terrible and I'll have wasted my life on nothing. Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You know what the difference is between people who succeed and people who don't? Talent? No. It's that successful people are willing to be terrible first. They're willing to write bad drafts and make mistakes and keep going anyway. You want to know why Derek never made anything of himself? Because he was too afraid of failing. He'd rather tear other people down than risk being wrong about anything. Elena looked at him, at the conviction in his eyes. You really believe that? Believe? I built everything I have from nothing. You think I didn't fail along the way? You think every decision I made was right? Roman shook his head. I failed constantly. I made terrible choices. But I kept moving forward because standing still meant death. That's different. You were fighting for survival. So are you, just a different kind. The words hit harder than Elena expected. She'd never thought of it that way, but he was right. She'd been surviving for so long, surviving Derek's criticism, surviving her own fear, surviving the slow death of giving up on herself, that she'd forgotten what it meant to actually live. I don't know how to start, she said. Yes, you do. You just start. It's not that simple. It is. You're making it complicated because complicated gives you an excuse not to try. Elena pulled her hands away. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he didn't understand, that it wasn't as easy as just deciding to do something. But the truth was sitting heavy in her stomach. He was right. She'd been hiding behind fear for so long that she'd forgotten fear was a choice. What if I fail? She asked quietly. Then you fail, and then you try again. What if I can't? Then you can't. But at least you'll know. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to find out. Elena looked at him, at this dangerous man who somehow understood her better than anyone else ever had. How did you get so good at this? At what? Seeing through people, knowing what they need to hear. Roman's expression shifted, something sad flickering across his face. Because I spent most of my life having people see right through me, like I didn't exist, like I didn't matter. So I learned to pay attention, to see the things other people miss. You matter, Elena said. To you, maybe. To more than just me. People fear me. That's not the same as mattering. I don't fear you. You should. Why? Because you want me to? Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Because it would make this easier. Make what easier? Letting you go when this inevitably falls apart. The word stung. Elena stood up, putting space between them. Is that what you think is going to happen? That we're going to fall apart? I think it's what always happens. People get close to me and they get hurt. That's the pattern. Then break the pattern. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just stop expecting the worst. Roman laughed, a harsh sound. That's not how my world works. Then change your world. Elena shut. No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to push me toward my dreams and then act like yours are impossible. If I have to be brave, so do you. Roman stood, his jaw tight. It's not the same. Why not? Because your dreams won't get you killed. The room fell silent. Elena's heart was pounding. What does that mean? It means the life I live has consequences. Real ones. And the more you're part of it, the more danger you're in. So what, you're just going to keep me at arm's length forever? If that's what keeps you safe. I don't want to be safe. I want to be with you. Those two things are mutually exclusive. Elena crossed her arms. Then I choose you. You don't know what you're choosing. Stop telling me what I know and don't know. I'm not a child, Roman. I'm a grown woman making a choice. And I choose you. All of you. Even the parts you think are too dangerous or too dark or too damaged. I choose you anyway. Roman looked at her like she'd just punched him. Why? Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and terrifying. Elena hadn't meant to say them. They'd just come out, propelled by frustration and fear and the overwhelming certainty that she couldn't take them back even if she wanted to. Roman didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. Say something, Elena said finally. You shouldn't. Shouldn't what? Love me. Too late. Elena, I love you. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know you're going to tell me all the reasons it's a bad idea. But I don't care. I love you anyway. Roman's hands curled into fists at his sides. You're going to regret this. Maybe. But right now I don't. He crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was trying to prove something. Elena kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and anger and hope tangled together. When they finally broke apart, Roman's forehead rested against hers. I love you too, he said quietly, and I have no idea what to do about it. Elena almost laughed. Neither do I. We're a disaster. I know. This is going to end badly. Probably. Roman pulled back to look at her. But you're staying anyway. Yes. Why? Because loving you is the first real thing I've done in years. And I'm not giving that up just because it's hard. Something in Roman's expression cracked. He pulled her close again, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the ground. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city sprawling beyond the windows. Eventually, Roman's phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. You should get that, Elena said. I don't want to. It might be important. Roman sighed and pulled away. He checked the screen and his jaw tightened. It's about Derek. Elena's stomach dropped. What about him? Roman answered the call, listened for a moment, then hung up. He's back in New York. My people are watching him. Are you going to... Elena stopped, not sure how to finish the sentence. Talk to him? Yes. Hurt him? Only if he makes me. Roman, I'm not going to kill him if that's what you're worried about, but I am going to make sure he understands that coming after you again would be a mistake. What if he doesn't listen? Then I'll make the message clearer. Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him not to, but the truth was she didn't have a better solution. Derek wasn't going to stop on his own. She'd tried asking nicely. She'd tried ignoring him. Nothing worked. When? She asked. Tonight. After I put you on a plane home. I'm not leaving without you. Elena, no. If you're doing this because of me, then I'm staying. That's not how this works. Then explain to me how it works. Because from where I'm standing, you keep making decisions for me without asking what I want. Roman ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm trying to protect you. And I'm trying to tell you I don't need protection. I need a partner, someone who treats me like an equal, not a responsibility. You don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. Take me with you. Let me see what you're actually dealing with instead of leaving me here to imagine the worst. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No. Why not? Because I don't want you to see that part of me, the part that's going to walk into Derek's apartment and threaten him until he's too terrified to even think your name. You think I can't handle it? I think you shouldn't have to. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is. This is my world, Elena. These are my rules. Something snapped in Elena. All the frustration, all the fear, all the feeling like she was constantly being managed instead of being trusted came flooding out. Then maybe I don't belong in your world, she said. Roman froze. What? If I'm not allowed to actually be part of your life, the real parts, not just the nice dinners and quiet conversations, then what's the point? I don't want to be the person you visit when you need a break from reality. I want to be reality. You are. No, I'm not. I'm a fantasy, someone you can pretend with, someone who doesn't know enough to judge you. That's not true, isn't it? You keep me separate from everything that matters. Your work, your people, the choices you make that define who you are. You give me pieces of yourself and expect that to be enough. But it's not. Roman's expression hardened. What do you want from me? I want you to let me in, all the way, not just when it's convenient. Even if it changes how you see me? Even if you end up hating who I really am? Yes, because at least it would be real. They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. Finally, Roman said, "Fine. You want to come? Then come. But don't blame me if you regret it." "I won't." "You don't know that. Neither do you." Roman grabbed his jacket. "We leave in 10 minutes. And Elena?" "What?" "If at any point I tell you to leave, you leave. No arguments, no questions. Understood?" Elena nodded, her heart pounding. Understood. They flew back to New York that night. Roman spent most of the flight on his phone, making calls in Italian that Elena couldn't follow. She tried to read but couldn't focus. Just kept thinking about what was coming, what she was about to see. When they landed, a car was waiting. Roman gave the driver an address Elena didn't recognize, somewhere in the East Village. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. "You can still change your mind," Roman said quietly. "I'm not going to. I need you to stay in the car no matter what happens. Okay?" "I'm serious, Elena." I said okay. The car pulled up outside a walk-up building that had seen better days. Peeling paint, cracked steps, windows covered with makeshift curtains. Roman checked his phone, then looked at Elena. "Derek's on the 3rd floor. I'm going up alone. You stay here with Marco." He nodded at the driver. "How long will you be?" "As long as it takes." Roman got out of the car. Elena watched him disappear into the building, her stomach in knots. Marco didn't say anything, just sat there watching the street like this was the most normal thing in the world. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Elena's leg bounced nervously. She kept checking her phone, willing it to buzz with a message from Roman. At 15 minutes, she heard shouting from inside the building. A man's voice, high and panicked. Then Roman's voice, low and calm. Elena's hands gripped the door handle. Marco glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Miss Elena, Mr. D'Angelo said—" I know what he said. More shouting, the sound of something crashing, then silence. Elena couldn't take it anymore. She opened the door and got out of the car. "Miss Elena, I'm just going to the door, that's all." She crossed the sidewalk and climbed the steps. The building's front door was propped open with a brick. She slipped inside and started up the stairs, her heart hammering. The 3rd floor hallway was narrow and dim. One of the doors was open a crack, light spilling out. Elena moved toward it, her breath shallow. She could hear Roman's voice now, steady and cold. "I'm going to say this once. Stay away from Elena. Don't call her. Don't text her. Don't send people to follow her. Don't even think about her. Because if you do, I will make sure you regret every choice that led you to this moment. Do you understand?" Derek's voice was shaking. "You can't just—" "I can. And I am. You had your chance with her. You threw it away, and now you're trying to ruin her life because you can't stand seeing her happy without you. That ends tonight. She doesn't even know who you are. You're a criminal. You're going to destroy her. That's not your concern anymore." "I'm trying to protect her." "No. You're trying to control her. There's a difference. And she's done being controlled." Elena pushed the door open wider. Roman was standing in the middle of a cramped studio apartment, his back to her. Derek was sitting on a ratty couch, his face pale, his hands trembling. Roman turned when he heard the door. His expression flickered from surprise to anger. "I told you to stay in the car," he said quietly. "I know." Derek's eyes went wide when he saw her. "Elena, don't," she said. Her voice was steadier than she expected. "Don't say my name. Don't look at me. We're done. We've been done for a long time. You just refuse to accept it." "He's manipulating you," Derek said desperately. "Can't you see that? The only person who ever manipulated me was you. You made me feel worthless. You made me doubt everything about myself. And now you're stalking me because you can't handle the fact that I moved on. I was trying to help. No. You were trying to make yourself feel important by making me feel small. And I'm done letting you." Derek looked between her and Roman, something crumbling in his expression. "You've changed." "Yes, I have. and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. She turned and walked out of the apartment. Roman followed, pulling the door shut behind them. They walked down the stairs in silence, out to the car where Marco was waiting. Inside, Elena's hands started shaking. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her hollow and exhausted. "Are you okay?" Roman asked. "I don't know. You shouldn't have come up." "I know, but I needed to. I needed to see him, to tell him it was over. Really over." Roman pulled her close. "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For standing up for yourself. For not needing me to fix it for you." Elena laughed shakily. "You're the one who threatened him." "But you're the one who ended it. That was all you." They rode back to Roman's apartment in silence. When they got there, Elena collapsed on the couch, suddenly exhausted down to her bones. "I need to tell you something," Roman said. Elena looked up. "What?" "I found a space for your cafe, for your bookstore, whatever you want it to be." Her heart stopped. "What?" "There's a corner storefront in the West Village. It's been empty for 2 years. The owner's willing to sell. I already made an offer." Elena sat up slowly. "You did what?" "I bought you the space for your dream." The words should have been romantic, should have felt like a gift. Instead, they felt like a trap closing around her. "You didn't ask me," Elena said quietly. Roman frowned. "I was trying to help." "By making a huge decision about my life without talking to me first? I thought you'd be happy." "Happy? Roman, you just bought me a building. That's not help. That's control." "I don't understand. Oh, no, you don't. And that's the problem." Elena stood, anger rising. "You think because you love me, you get to make my choices for me. You get to decide what I need, what's good for me, how my life should go. But that's not love. That's ownership." Roman's expression darkened. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" "I wanted to give you something, to show you I believe in you." "I don't need you to show me. I need you to trust me to build it myself." "I'm not stopping you from building it." "Yes, you are. By doing it for me. Don't you see? If you buy me the building, open the cafe, set everything up, then it's not my dream anymore. It's yours. It's something you gave me, not something I earned." Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I thought I was helping." "I know, and that's what scares me. You think helping means taking over, fixing things, making decisions. But I don't need you to fix my life, Roman. I need you to let me live it. Even if that means struggling, even if it takes years. Yes, because it's mine. The struggle, the failure, the success, all of it. It has to be mine." Roman looked at her like she'd just spoken a truth he'd never wanted to hear. "I don't know how to do that. To care about someone and not try to protect them from everything." "Then you need to learn, because I can't be with someone who treats me like a problem to solve instead of a person to stand beside." The words hung between them, final and devastating. Roman's jaw worked, his hands curling into fists at his sides. "What are you saying?" he asked quietly. Elena's throat tightened. "I'm saying I love you, but I can't do this if you won't let me be an equal partner, if you can't trust me to make my own choices and my own mistakes." "So what, you're leaving?" "I don't want to, but I will if I have to." Roman stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked lost. Completely, utterly lost. "I don't know how to be what you need," he said. "Yes, you do. You just have to stop being so afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing control. Of not being the one with all the answers. Of letting someone else be strong while you're still figuring things out." Roman was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll cancel the offer." "What?" "On the building. I'll cancel it. You're right. It wasn't my decision to make." Elena felt something loosen in her chest. "Thank you. But I don't know if I can change the rest of it. The part that wants to fix everything. That's who I've always been." "I'm not asking you to change overnight. I'm just asking you to try." Roman nodded slowly. "I can try. That's all I need." He pulled her close and Elena let herself be held, feeling the weight of everything they'd just said settle between them. This wasn't fixed. Nothing was fixed. But at least they were being honest. At least they had a chance. The weeks that followed were harder than either of them expected. Roman canceled the building offer like he'd promised, but the silence afterward felt heavier than words. He didn't know how to be present without taking over, and Elena didn't know how to build something from nothing when every instinct told her to accept help. They saw each other less. Not because they wanted to, but because they both needed space to figure out who they were when they weren't tangled up in each other. Elena threw herself into work. She picked up extra shifts at the cafe, saved every penny, started looking at commercial real estate listings she couldn't afford yet. She wrote in the early mornings before her shifts, filling notebook after notebook with terrible first drafts that she forced herself not to delete. It was slow. It was frustrating. Some days she wanted to quit, but she kept going. Roman restructured parts of his business, delegating more than he ever had before. He'd built an empire by controlling every detail, but now he was learning to trust other people to make decisions. It went against every instinct he had. Some days he failed spectacularly, snapping at people who didn't deserve it, micromanaging deals that didn't need his attention. But he kept trying. They texted every day, called most nights. But it wasn't the same as before. There was a distance now, a carefulness that hadn't been there when everything was new and reckless. "I miss you," Elena said one night. She was lying in bed, phone pressed to her ear, Roman's voice crackling through the speaker. "I miss you too." "Are we making a mistake? Pulling back like this?" Roman was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe. But I think we needed to. We were moving so fast we forgot to figure out if we could actually work. And can we? I don't know yet. Do you?" Elena stared at the ceiling. "I want to say yes, but I'm scared that wanting it isn't enough. Then we keep trying until we know for sure. What if it takes months? Then it takes months. What if it takes longer?" "Elena." Roman's voice was soft. "I'll wait as long as you need. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "I promise." 2 months passed. Elena found a space she could almost afford, a tiny storefront in Alphabet City with good light and creaky floors. She signed a lease that made her stomach churn with anxiety and started building her dream one piece at a time. She bought used furniture, painted the walls herself, spent hours arranging bookshelves and testing coffee machines. Maya helped on weekends, climbing ladders and making playlists, and telling Elena she was insane for doing this alone. "You know Roman would help if you asked," Maya said one Saturday afternoon. They were hanging curtains, and Elena kept dropping the hammer. "I know. So why don't you?" "Because I need to do this myself. I need to know I can." Maya gave her a long look. "You know it's okay to accept help, right? That doesn't make you weak. It's not about being weak. It's about knowing the difference between help and someone taking over. And you don't trust Roman to know that difference." Elena stopped what she was doing. "I'm trying to, but it's hard. He's used to fixing everything, and I'm used to people fixing things in ways that make me smaller. He's not Derek. I know, but I'm still the same person who let Derek make me feel worthless for 2 years. That doesn't just go away because I met someone better." Maya climbed down from the ladder and stood beside her. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you're punishing yourself. You think you have to do everything the hard way to prove you deserve good things. But Elena, you already deserve them. You always did." The words hit harder than Elena expected. She blinked back tears and focused on the curtains, on the hammer in her hand, on anything but the truth of what Maya had just said. That night, Elena texted Roman, "Can you come by tomorrow? I want to show you something." He responded immediately. "What time?" "Noon? I'll be there." Roman showed up at exactly noon carrying 2 coffees and a bag of pastries from a bakery Elena loved but could never afford. He stopped in the doorway and looked around, taking in the half-finished cafe, the mismatched furniture, the hand-painted sign leaning against the wall. "You did this," he said quietly. "Most of it. Maya helped." "It's incredible." Elena felt her cheeks flush. "It's not finished. There's still so much to do. The espresso machine is broken and I need permits, and I haven't even figured out the menu yet." "Elena." Roman set down the coffees and crossed the room. "It's incredible." She looked up at him, at the pride in his eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said. Roman frowned. "I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You pushed me to start even when I was terrified. That matters. That's help. I thought you didn't want my help. I didn't want you to do it for me. But I do want you beside me. There's a difference. Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Show me what you need." What? Show me what still needs to be done. Not so I can fix it, so I can help you finish it. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. You mean that? Yes. I'm not going to take over. I'm not going to make decisions for you. But if you need someone to hold a ladder or move furniture or just be here while you work, I want to do that. If you'll let me. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Roman pulled her close and she let herself lean into him, feeling the solidity of him, the warmth. I'm sorry, she said against his chest. For what? For pushing you away. For making you feel like you couldn't be part of this. You didn't push me away, you set boundaries. That's different. It didn't feel different. I know, but it was necessary. We both needed to figure some things out. Elena pulled back to look at him. And did you? Figure things out? Roman's mouth almost smiled. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting better at not needing to control everything. It turns out the world doesn't collapse when I let other people make decisions. How does that feel? Terrifying, but also kind of freeing. Elena laughed. Good. That's how I feel most days. They spent the rest of the afternoon working side by side. Roman didn't take over. Didn't tell Elena how things should be done. Just followed her lead. Held things steady while she drilled. Moved heavy furniture when she asked. They worked in comfortable silence, occasionally interrupted by Elena's music or Roman's dry observations about her organizational system. This makes no sense, he said, looking at her shelf arrangement. It makes perfect sense. Classics go here, contemporary goes there. Poetry is by the window because poets need natural light. That's not a real rule. It is in my store. Roman shook his head, but he was smiling. You're impossible. You love it. I do. By the time they finished, the sun was setting, painting the store in gold and amber light. Elena stood in the middle of the room and looked around, feeling something tight in her chest start to loosen. It's really happening, she said quietly. It is. I'm terrified. Good. That means it matters. Elena turned to him. Thank you for being here, for not trying to fix everything. Thank you for letting me be part of it. They stood there looking at each other, and Elena realized something she'd been too afraid to admit before. This was what partnership looked like. Not someone taking over or someone struggling alone. Just two people showing up for each other, respecting boundaries, building something together. I love you, she said. I love you too. I mean it, not just the words. I mean, I want to do this with you. All of it. The cafe, the life, the messy, complicated parts. I want us to figure it out together. Roman's expression softened. Are you sure? Yes. Are you? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Elena felt everything click into place. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but right. The cafe opened 3 months later. Elena had chosen the name carefully, between the lines, because it felt like the story of her life. All the important things happening in the spaces between what people saw on the surface. Opening day was chaos. The espresso machine broke twice. She ran out of croissants by noon. A customer spilled coffee on one of the few first edition books she'd splurged on, and Elena almost cried. But people kept coming. They sat in the mismatched chairs, browsed the shelves, asked about her recommendations. By closing time, Elena was exhausted and exhilarated and more proud of herself than she'd ever been. Roman had stayed away during business hours, respecting her need to do this part alone. But when she locked the door at 8 and turned around, he was standing there with flowers and that almost smile she loved. You did it, he said. I did. How does it feel? Elena thought about it. Terrifying, overwhelming, perfect. That sounds about right. They walked through the cafe together, Roman listening while Elena pointed out every detail, every choice, every small victory. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer suggestions, just listened like her words were the most important thing he'd ever heard. I want to show you something, Elena said when they reached the back corner. She led him to a small reading nook she'd set up. A comfortable chair, a good lamp, a side table. On the wall above it hung a simple wooden sign with a quote burned into the wood. The most dangerous thing is to think you can control everything. The bravest thing is to let someone help you anyway. Roman stared at it for a long moment. Did you write that? I did. It's from something I've been working on. A story about two people who have to learn that love isn't about control or protection. It's about trust. Is it about us? Elena smiled. Parts of it. The important parts. Roman reached out and traced the words with his finger. It's good. You think so? I know so. Over the next few months, Between the Lines became exactly what Elena had dreamed of. A neighborhood gathering place. A quiet refuge. Somewhere people could sit with a book and a coffee and feel like they belonged. She hired Maya part-time, brought in local authors for readings, started a writing group that met every Thursday night. Roman came by when he could, usually late in the evening after the cafe had closed. He'd sit at the counter while Elena cleaned up, and they'd talk about their days, their plans, the small moments that made life feel full. He never tried to change anything, never suggested improvements or efficiencies, just showed up and listened and made her feel like what she'd built mattered. I have something to tell you, Elena said one night. They were in her apartment. She'd kept it even though Roman had a much nicer place because she needed somewhere that was entirely hers. What's that? I finished it. The story. The one about us. Roman looked up. Yeah? I'm thinking about trying to get it published. Maybe as a novella. I don't know if anyone will want it, but they will. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because it's good. Because it's real. Because you wrote it. Elena felt her throat tighten. What if it fails? Then it fails. But what if it doesn't? She thought about that. About all the what ifs she'd been carrying around for so long. What if she wasn't good enough? What if Derek was right? What if she wasted years on nothing? All those fears that had kept her small and stuck and safe. You know what I've learned? Elena said. What? That the what ifs don't matter as much as I thought they did. What matters is that I tried. That I built something. That I didn't let fear stop me from becoming who I was supposed to be. Roman reached across the table and took her hand. I'm proud of you. For what? For being brave. For not giving up on yourself. For teaching me that I don't have to control everything to matter. Did I teach you that? You did. You still are. They sat there in comfortable silence, fingers intertwined, and Elena realized something that felt both obvious and profound. She'd spent so long looking for someone to complete her, to fix her, to make her whole. But that wasn't what love was. Love was finding someone who saw you as whole already and chose to walk beside you anyway. Someone who challenged you to be better without making you feel like you weren't enough. Someone who showed up even when it was hard and trusted you to do the same. 6 months after the cafe opened, Elena got an email from a small press interested in her novella. It wasn't a huge deal, no advance, no promises, but they wanted to publish it. They thought people would connect with it. They believed in her. She called Roman immediately. They want it, she said, her voice shaking. Of course they do. Roman, they actually want to publish my story. Elena. She could hear the smile in his voice. I'm not surprised. I've been waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to what I already knew. Which is that you're brilliant, that your words matter, that you were always meant to do this. Elena started crying. Happy tears, relieved tears. Tears for every year she'd spent believing she wasn't enough. Thank you, she said. For what? For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You did that part. I just reminded you it was possible. That night, Roman took her to dinner at the same Brooklyn restaurant where they'd had their first real date. They sat in the same corner booth, ordered the same food, and talked about everything that had changed since that night. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked. Choosing me. Choosing this. Choosing a life that's more complicated than it used to be. Roman looked at her like she'd asked the most ridiculous question in the world. Never. Not once. Not even when I'm stubborn and impossible? Especially then, Elena laughed. Why? Because you challenge me. You make me better. You make me want to be someone who deserves you. You already are. I'm working on it. So am I. Roman reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Elena's heart stopped. I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. Not until you're ready. But I wanted you to have this. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver key on a chain. What is it? Elena asked. A key to my apartment, so you always have a place to go when you need one, so you know that wherever I am, you belong there too. Elena took the necklace with trembling hands. Roman, I know you need your own space. I know you need independence. I'm not asking you to move in or change anything. I'm just saying you're always welcome, always wanted, always home. Elena couldn't speak, just nodded and let him fasten the chain around her neck. The key rested against her heart, warm and solid and real. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For understanding, for not pushing, for letting me come to you when I'm ready instead of trying to force it. That's what love is, Elena. It's not about owning someone or protecting them from everything. It's about showing up, trusting them, being there when they need you and stepping back when they don't. When did you get so wise? When I met someone who refused to let me be anything less. They finished dinner and walked through Brooklyn hand in hand, talking about the future in ways that didn't feel scary anymore. Elena told him about ideas for expanding the cafe, maybe adding author events or writing workshops. Roman told her about scaling back some of his business operations, focusing on things that felt meaningful instead of just profitable. I've been thinking, Roman said as they reached the bridge overlooking the river. About what? About what I want my legacy to be. I spent so long building power, building wealth, building walls to keep people out. But none of that matters if I don't have something real. Someone real. You have that. I know. And it's changed everything. You've changed everything. Elena leaned against the railing, looking out at the city lights reflecting on the water. I used to think love was about finding someone who would take care of me, who would make all my decisions and solve all my problems. I thought that was what I needed. And now? Now I know that's not love. That's just another kind of prison. Real love is finding someone who sees you as strong enough to fight your own battles but stays beside you anyway. Someone who celebrates your victories without taking credit for them. Someone who picks you up when you fall without making you feel weak for falling. Roman pulled her close. Is that what we have? Yes. It took us a while to figure it out, but yes. I'm glad we didn't give up. Me too. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city sprawling around them. And Elena realized something that felt like the end of one story and the beginning of another. She'd spent so long believing she needed to be saved, but the truth was she'd saved herself. Roman hadn't rescued her from her life. He'd just shown up and reminded her she was strong enough to rescue herself. And in return, she'd shown him that strength didn't mean controlling everything. It meant having the courage to let go. A year after the cafe opened, Elena published her novella. It sold modestly, got decent reviews, and more importantly, it was hers. Proof that she'd done it, that she'd taken the dream everyone told her was impossible and made it real. The book launch was at Between the Lines, of course. The store was packed with friends, regulars, people who'd watched Elena build this place from nothing. Maya made a speech about how proud she was. A few customers shared what the cafe meant to them. And then Elena stood up to read. She'd chosen the final chapter, the part where her characters, a woman running from her past and a man learning to trust someone with his present, finally figured out that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up messy and imperfect and choosing each other anyway. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Elena looked out at all the faces, at Maya wiping her eyes, at her parents who'd driven in from Connecticut, at the life she'd built from scratch. And there, in the back corner, was Roman, clapping quietly, his eyes bright with something that looked like pride. After everyone left, after the store was cleaned and the chairs put back and the books restocked, Roman walked Elena home. You did good tonight, he said. Thanks. I was terrified. It didn't show. Good. I've gotten better at pretending, Roman laughed. Haven't we all? They reached Elena's building. She pulled out her keys, then paused. Come up? She asked. Always. Inside her apartment, Elena made tea while Roman looked at the framed photo she'd hung on the wall. A picture of the cafe on opening day, the morning light streaming through the windows, everything fresh and new and full of possibility. I'm thinking about getting a bigger place, Elena said. Roman turned. Yeah? Yeah. Something with an actual bedroom. Maybe a little office space so I can write. That sounds good. I was thinking maybe you could help me look. If you want. Roman's expression shifted. Are you asking me to move in with you? Not yet, but maybe someday, if we keep doing this right. And what does doing it right look like? Elena thought about it. It looks like both of us showing up. Both of us trying. Both of us being brave enough to be vulnerable and strong enough to stand on our own and smart enough to know when we need each other. That's a lot of things to balance. It is, but I think we're getting better at it. Roman crossed the room and pulled her close. I love you, Elena Brooks. I love you too, Roman D'Angelo. Even the parts that are still figuring things out. Especially those parts. They stood there in her tiny kitchen, holding each other, and Elena felt something settle deep in her bones. This was it. This was the life she'd been terrified to reach for. Not perfect. Not easy. But real and messy, and hers. She'd started this journey grabbing a stranger at a wedding, desperate and afraid and convinced she wasn't enough. And somehow, impossibly, she'd ended up here. Standing in her own apartment, in her own life, beside a man who'd seen every broken piece of her and stayed anyway. Not because he wanted to fix her, but because he loved her exactly as she was. And maybe that was the lesson buried in all of this. That love wasn't about finding someone to complete you. It was about finding someone who reminded you that you were already complete, that you were already enough, that you'd always been enough, even when you couldn't see it yourself. Roman had taught her that, and in return, she taught him that control wasn't the same as strength, that letting go was its own kind of power, that being vulnerable didn't make you weak, it made you human. They were still figuring things out, still learning how to be together without losing themselves, still making mistakes, and apologizing, and trying again. But that was okay, because the point wasn't to be perfect. The point was to keep showing up, to keep choosing each other, to keep building something real in a world that kept trying to tell them it was impossible. 2 years later, Elena stood in a bigger apartment with an actual bedroom and a small office where she wrote every morning before opening the cafe. Roman's things had gradually migrated there over months of careful integration. His coffee maker on the counter, his books on the shelf, his jacket hanging by the door. Not an invasion, not a takeover, just a slow, gentle merging of two lives that had learned how to exist together without erasing each other. Between the lines had expanded into the space next door. Maya ran it most days now, freeing Elena to write more, to work on her second book, to teach the writing workshops that had become so popular she'd had to add extra sessions. Roman had restructured his business completely. He still worked, still made deals, still commanded respect in rooms full of powerful people. But he'd learned to separate the empire from the man, to come home and be present, to listen without trying to solve, to love without trying to control. They weren't perfect. They still fought sometimes, still had to remind each other about boundaries and trust and showing up. But they were better, stronger, more themselves than they'd ever been. And isn't that what love should be? Not two people completing each other, but two whole people choosing to walk the same path. Not someone rescuing you from your life, but someone standing beside you while you rescue yourself. Not perfection, but real messy human connection that challenges you to grow without demanding you change who you are. Elena had learned that the hard way. She'd learned that you can't love someone into saving you, and you can't save someone into loving you. All you can do is show up, be honest, set boundaries, and trust that the right person will respect all of it. Roman had learned that power wasn't about control, that strength wasn't about dominance, that the bravest thing he could do was trust someone enough to be vulnerable, to need them, to let them see the parts of himself he usually kept hidden. Together, they'd built something that looked nothing like the fairy tales and everything like real life. Complicated and challenging and worth every difficult moment. Because at the end of the day, love wasn't about finding someone who made your life easier. It was about finding someone who made your life bigger. Someone who pushed you to be braver, kinder, more yourself than you ever thought possible. Someone who showed up when things got hard and stayed when things got harder. Elena had found that in Roman. And Roman had found it in Elena. Not because they were perfect for each other, but because they were willing to do the work, to make the choice, to keep showing up even when it would have been easier to walk away. That was the real story. Not the wedding where they met, Not the dramatic confrontation with Derek, not even the cafe or the book. The real story was two broken people learning how to be whole together, learning that love was a verb, not a feeling, an action, not a guarantee, a choice you made every day, even on the days when it was hard, especially on those days. And if there was a lesson in all of this, a message worth carrying forward, it was this: you don't need someone to save you. You need someone who believes you're strong enough to save yourself. You don't need someone to complete you. You need someone who reminds you that you're already complete. You don't need perfect love. You need honest love. The kind that sees your flaws and loves you anyway. The kind that challenges you to grow without demanding you change. The kind that shows up day after day, choosing you not because they have to, but because they want to. That was what Elena and Roman had built. Not a fairy tale, but something better. Something real. And in a world that kept trying to sell them easy answers and perfect endings, they'd chosen the messy, complicated, beautiful truth instead. They'd chosen each other, every day. And that made all the difference.